Welcome to the Purpose of Your Mom Show, episode 390. We're going to talk right now about why you should start planning the next month. And I know you're like, Cara, it's the third week of the month. It's still the new year. I don't even know what I'm doing in January. Why should I think about February? And I'm going to give you some really good reasons that you should start thinking about it now. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to do it. Now, one of the things that I like to do with members of the Purpose of Your Mom Club is we do a planning, and we do it around the third week of every single month because it allows you to give yourself some time. So let's talk about it. When you wait until the 30th or the 31st or the 28th or 29th this year of the month, right, to actually get going with your planning, it more will bring you into this like fight or flight stress mode than anything else. What do I mean by that? We have this thing planted in our brains that says you have to have everything done by the first of the month. You got to start on Monday. Like, we are conditioned. What if instead you gave yourself some buffer and some time? I like to plan the third week of the month because it gives me time to actually think about my goals, think about what I want to get done, and not feel so rushed all the time. The third week of the month is a great time to do it because once you get started in the planning, what you can then do is take just the 15 minutes, just like we talk about in the 15-minute formula. And listen, if you want, go to get the book today. It's the official 2-year anniversary today of the book. Go and get it if you don't know anything about my formula, right? It gives you 15 minutes. You can work 15 minutes at a time on it instead of feeling rushed. The planning process that I do for each month, it does take me 1 to 2 hours to really plan well. And I know you're like, oh, Cara, I do not have 1 to 2 hours to plan. But here's the thing. When you do it well, when you take the 1 to 2 hours and plan the way that I teach, and I'm going to give you an overview of it today, you will start and end your month strong. You will feel really good because you're not trying to make decisions on the fly. You're word of the year, intentional, right? You can see it behind me if you're watching on YouTube, right? You're intentional about your time. I even have down there one of my statements, I pre-plan, so I'm focused during my work time. Because when you have this intentionality, when you've really gone and planned out what you're going to do in advance, and you do spend the time, you will waste so much less time actually just doing instead of thinking about doing. Does that make sense? We're always like, what am I supposed to be doing? Where should I be spending my time? Go with the pre-plan, right? But I also know that 1 to 2 hours can feel really overwhelming and really daunting. Like, how am I supposed to find the time to actually get it done? And that's why I start early, because if I'm say need 15 extra minutes, a couple sessions, right? That's 15 minutes, that's 1 hour. And I start the third week of the month, I can do that, right? My brain can say, I can spend 15 minutes working on one piece of my goals, and then I'll come back to it, right? I don't have to sit here for 2 straight hours because as moms, we don't have 2 straight hours, right? We don't have this time to just sit. It would be beautiful and wonderful if we did, but we really don't, right? And so this way you can say to yourself, all right, I'm not going to feel stressed. I don't have to find 2 hours on the 31st of every month. And then I don't get it. And then I feel behind. And then I'm starting the month, unsure of where to go. Instead, I'm saying, hey, can I take 15 minutes to focus on this one goal? That's easy. I can do that. I can do anything in 15 minutes. 15 minutes is enough time to, scroll my TikTok and let the time go by. But I can also unload my dishwasher in 15 minutes, right? So it's this concept of I'm giving myself time and it's not rushed. When you're thinking about your goals in a more rushed space, your brain is feeling frantic. Your brain is feeling frazzled. Your brain is like, I don't know what to do. I'm super overwhelmed. I don't know where to go from here because I'm rushed and it's like I've got this urgency. When you start the third week of the month thinking about next month, your brain can relax. You can leave fight or flight a little bit, and you can actually just think about the goal. So number one reason, before we talk about how, is to give yourself time and space to actually think, to not feel rushed, and to actually enjoy the process of planning instead of doing it halfway because you only have a certain amount of time. Now, the other thing that I love about planning my goals the third week of the month is it lets me think about the goals that I had for the month and not give up on them. So what do I mean by that? A lot of times I could sit and look at my goal and be like, oh, I said I was going to read this book, right? I said I was going to do this. But if I don't look at my goals until the 31st, I'll just say, oh, well, I'll do it later. But if instead it's the 22nd, I'm looking at my goals today, I still have 9 days to work on this goal. The month isn't over. The goal isn't done. and I can actually work on it. It'll also sometimes like remind me, oh, I said I wanted to work on this goal. This goal was important for me. What can I do with the 9 days left in the month? Instead of feeling defeated, like, well, I don't have enough time to do it, this allows you to change your mindset and reframe to what can I do with the time I have left in the month? There have been times where I had a goal on my list and I was like, oh yeah, I'm not even going to be anywhere near touching that goal. And then I did the planning and I thought, actually, I do have some time. Well, then I spent a little bit of time on it, 15 minutes here or there. So when you start planning early enough in the month, what it will allow you to do is maybe actually accomplish some of the goals you set for the month that you felt defeated on, that you felt like you would never be able to do it. No, you might not be able to do it at the same capacity. I said I was going to, okay, so I have a goal. I'm making these latch hook pillows. It's like a new hobby of mine. And I have a spring pillow I want to make. Now I'm giving myself 3 months to do it. So I have till spring so that it's fun, it's enjoyable. I'm not feeling super rushed. My word of the year in my personal life is ease. So I don't want anything that feels like super stressful. But I want to accomplish it, right? We can still have that. You know that, right? Like I can have urgency towards my latch hook pillow goal while it's still being light and fun. Like you can have both of those. Sometimes someone messaged me because I posted about it on Instagram and they were like, you take the fun out of goals. I was like, no, I accomplished my goals and this is fun for me because if I didn't make a plan, I wouldn't achieve them at all because I wouldn't work on them. So what I'm saying is have this time where you like look at the goal and you get something done. So I could maybe look at my latch hook goal and be like, oh, I haven't even picked this latch hook up all month. So maybe I'm not going to get the 10 rows I said I was going to get done or whatever the math wound up being. Because you know me, I counted that latch hook up and divided it up by rows. Like I did the process, not to be like an overly robotic, productive person, but I knew that that is how my brain can make it manageable. Saying to myself, I have to do 2 rows, 10 rows a week is a lot better than looking at a 100-row pillow and being like, oh, I can't do this, right? And so what this also may let me do is say, okay, I'm going to work on my latch hook pillow and maybe I'm not going to get the 10 rows or whatever the number is that I said I was going to do for the month, but can I do something? And that has an even bigger impact because what it does is it helps you eliminate a lot of that perfectionism of if I don't do it perfectly, it doesn't count to what can I do and proving to myself that I'm a person who can show up for their goals, even when it isn't ideal, even when it isn't perfect. All right. So 2 reasons you should plan now. 1, it gives you time to do it and enjoy it. And 2, it'll help you finish some of the goals that you have for the month, or at least move towards the target. It doesn't have to be completion, just work on them. Now, how do you do it? What should you be doing? I'm going to walk you through my planning process really quickly. This is the one we do every month with members of the Purpose Driven Mom Club. You can go to purposedrivenmom.com/club and get on the wait list. We don't open again until March. But we follow this exact process. We do it in about an hour, and it really helps the moms in my group have a really intentional plan for the next month. So we always start with reflection. That's always my step 1 because of what I just mentioned. If I'm doing my reflection process, I teach a process called the reflection pyramid. It will remind me of the goals I wanted to work on, and it will let me be like, all right, let me work on those. So reflect a little bit. How's the month going so far? Then what I do is I go and I brain dump all of my events that I have going on for the month. Any appointments we have, I put it on a calendar so I can physically see it in one place. This allows me to make appropriate goals. If I have a jam-packed calendar, so right now, talking about going into February, my daughter is in cheer comp season, right? So we're traveling. It's Girl Scout cookie season, like the thick of Girl Scout cookie season, and I'm a Girl Scout leader, right? So I have a weekend away with my sister. I have my book club is doing something, right? Like I have a lot of things happening. This is a very busy month for me. So I want to make appropriate goals. Now, here's what I mean by that. Maybe it isn't the best time for me to make a goal about like doing a home improvement project or decluttering because I'm not going to be home a lot in February. We're going to be traveling and doing things and out and like our schedule's about to get jammed. But what it might be is a great time for my latch hook pillow because I'll tell you, when I was at my daughter's last competition, I was like, oh, I'll bring my book. This will be a great time to read. If you've ever been to a cheer comp, too loud to read. But I brought my latch hook and I got a bunch done. So maybe this is the time to ramp into my crafting project or things like that. Okay. So I like to look at all my events. look at the month. And so I then can theme out about what I want to do, right? If I know like January for me was a nice like rebuilding month. And so I made sure that my self-care and my routines were my theme. I wanted to kind of get my routines back on track. Sometimes family might be the goal. I know that our schedule is super busy in February. So family might be a really great goal. So I can be intentional about it. And I also like to pick my seasons. So I'm not going to be able to get into this today on this episode, but maybe we can link that up in the show notes. I have episodes on the 4 seasons method, right? Plan, push, rest, and fun. So I like to decide what season I'm in. Once I've done that, I'm going to go through and brain dump all my goals. What goals do I want to accomplish? What goals do I want to work on? And all that, because then I can kind of categorize. So I would say reflection, events, picking my theme, brain dumping my goals. That's probably about 30 minutes of this entire process, right? So that part doesn't take too long once I've got the list, because then what I'm going to do is kind of categorize them. And I like to categorize in a few ways. I like to label them by like category of my life, like finance or health, things like that. And then I also like to categorize by type of goal. I teach a 4 types of goal method: numerical, project-based, learning, and habits. And then I will go through and tier them. The tiering system, we have episodes on that as well, helps you see how many new goals you're working on at once so that you don't have too many new things, right? And so tier 1 are brand new goals for yourself. So like my latch hook, for example, it's not a tier 1, it's something that I work on. I've got a habit on it. Tier 2, these are like established goals or establishing goals. So these are things that maybe I've worked on in the past. So right now, honestly, for me, like I latch hook at night. Me and my husband will watch a show together for an hour and I will latch hook. Like it is now just habitual for me. And so it becomes like tier 3. Latch hook is a maintenance goal, but if I don't track it, it won't happen, right? So I like to tier my goals. And then the bulk of the planning, friend, it's going to be in the breaking down. That's where I'm going to go through. And this is what we teach in the program. How do you break down all of your goals? I mentioned the latch hook, right? If I have 100 rows on my latch hook and I divide it up by however many days I plan to do the latch hook, I know how many I have to do, right? And that allows me to make a plan. If I have a project-based goal, I'm planning a trip, right? Or summer camp planning or things like that. I'm going to brain dump all the tasks that need for me to hit completion so that I can appropriately make it. If I'm doing a habit-based goal, I'm going to write down my habits and my stacks and things like that. The breakdown piece, that will take about an hour, I would say, to break down all of the goals in the way that I want. That part takes me about an hour to really go through and break each one down in the way that it needs to be broken down. But in doing that breakdown process, my nightly, last week I talked about how my nightly planning happens in like 5 minutes. It is quick. My weekly planning takes me 20 minutes because I'm spending this time creating a very foolproof, mom life proof plan. I know how to pivot it and I can look at it. After I've done my breakdowns, well, then I'm going to go through and I'm going to make that thought catcher. Again, you can go over to a purpose-drivenmom.com/podcast 389. That was last week. Show notes for this one will be at 390. Purpose-drivenmom.com/podcast 390. But I talked about that thought catcher. I will then make my thought catcher for the month. And then I will make a detailed plan for week 1. And that doesn't take as long if I do the breakdowns. Now you see why I said we start now. It's not that it's complicated. It is a very simple system that I teach, but it does take a little bit of time. If you look at it that way, you could be like, oh, it's so overwhelming. Or you could say, hey, I have 9 days to get this done. Can I work on it for 15 minutes? 8 of those days, 6 of those days, however much time you need, and be able to get it done. And you will feel so good going into the month. And now I get my Trello board organized. I'm planned. I'm ready to go. And then when the month begins, all I have to do is act. I don't have to think. This is the whole point of the pre-planning that I teach, because we are in decision fatigue central, right? As moms, everything is thrown at us all the time. This way, instead of feeling like I have to decide what I'm doing, when I'm in a good mood, when I'm in a good planning week, you can even tie this. There's a week of your cycle that's like best for planning. You can even tie it in with your cycle so you're like in the planning zone. I could do the work when I'm in the planning zone. And then when I'm in the doing zone, I don't have to worry about being motivated. I don't have to worry about figuring it out. All I have to worry about is, what did I say I was going to do? Let me work on it in small 15-minute chunks. So my encouragement for you today is to start some planning. start a little bit of a reflection process. Again, the club is closed, but you can go to purposedrivenmom.com/club. It'll get you on the wait list for next time to learn this method that I teach. And just start now. Start thinking about what you want to do. The month is not over. Maybe this year, listen, I'm gonna tell you, 2023 did not go the way that I planned. Already by mid-January, I'd gotten super sick. All of my plans had got derailed last year, but I kept going because I had the plan. I didn't want to say, oh, well, January sucked. It did not go the way I wanted to, so goodbye. I said, what can I do with the time that I have? And no, I did not accomplish a lot of the goals that were on my list, but I did accomplish some of them. I moved forward towards a lot of them, even with the life that I had, even with the year that was given to me, right? So as you go into now and maybe you're feeling discouraged, know that it's possible and you can achieve your goals. You can do all the things that you want, but it starts here and it starts with that monthly plan. So why don't you just start today? Okay. I'm on Instagram at a purpose-driven mom. If you want to ask me any questions about this process, check out our YouTube channel where we'll have some videos on it as well. Get your planning done. Have a wonderful week and I'll talk to you next week. See you on the podcast.